childhood up, we have had to conform to a certain social game.
Hello everybody, hi to all. This is Chela with Golden Almond Creation and Create Disclosure, and today I'm with my good friend Kinich here.
Hi everyone.
And today we just wanted to talk a little bit about ourselves and how we got to know each other, since we're going to be talking a little bit about who we are and how we're representing Create Disclosure.
Absolutely.
So you guys know a little bit about my story. I'm Chela, and I mostly talk about my experiences with ET, UFO, contact experiences and my interactions, and also my experience with spirituality. And Kinich, he has experience with spirituality and some other kinds of contact experiences too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to introduce Kinich, and you can also talk about how we met.
Yeah,
so we're going to talk a little bit about that too.
Absolutely. So as you guys know, I talked a little bit about deprogramming the mind in my intro video, and that's what I'm going to be focusing a lot on, deprogramming and helping everyone assimilate all the bombardment we get daily via TV and just media, music, culture, and all that good stuff. But I've had, my spiritual journey starts a long time ago, pretty much since I can remember. I've had astral projection since I was a little kid, and I didn't really know how to, put that into words for a long time. I didn't know anything about it. I came from a very religious family, as
I did too.
You did as well.
I was raised Christian.
Mm-hmm.
You were raised.
I was raised Catholic.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Going to church all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday.
No exception.
Exactly.
And every holiday, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Same.
And I did go to Christian church as well. Actually.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I started with Catholic church my whole life. Did like my first communion. All that bullshit that they make you do.
Yeah.
And
a lot of work.
Yeah. And when I was in high school, I was still having experiences, and I didn't know how to distinguish my spirituality from religion. I thought it was kind of like hand in hand. I didn't know that it was two completely different things yet. So Catholic church just kind of like stopped making sense to me. So I started going to Christian church, because at the time I was like, oh, this makes more sense a little bit. I didn't feel like it was so strict, and everything felt a little more relaxed. It had a band going,
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this seems like the right thing, And then after a while of that, it just, again, it wasn't fulfilling me. It just didn't feel like it was the right thing once again. So
I had a warning sign too when
Yeah.
I was going to my church. I used to like it a lot when I was a kid, because those were all my friends and I knew a lot of nice people there.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I started getting older, I was actually becoming aware of, like gay activist rights and things like that. So then I started to see how people were being treated who were gay, who wanted to come to church, and that's really what woke me up, because there was so much hatred about homosexuals in the church. And my aunt, she showed me like this whole community, like gay community, when I was visiting her in Oregon. And then I started to really like get along with these people. We went on camping trips with them. So then when I come back to church and I talk about my aunt, like her good friend and her work colleague, they're a gay couple, then you would be like hated on. And you didn't know why, because you're
terrible.
like, as a younger person, like 12 or 10, you just don't understand like where that kind of bias comes from, because for you it doesn't matter. You're like, oh, they're fun people. And that was my wake up call. Like that was when I started to question really hard, because how can you hate people but claim that you love everyone?
Yeah.
That was kind of like what broke me out in the beginning.
Yeah, I would say my major wake up call was towards the end of my time in the military. So that I was in the Navy for 4 years, and during the first 3 years, all my what you would call spiritual experiences, they kind of faded away. Like I didn't have projections anymore. I wasn't really remembering my dreams. I lost touch with my intuition, and all that had to be with all the programming that goes in boot camp. Probably all the chemicals they put in stuff there, and food, and just all the shots and vaccines. That's just insane how many vaccines. You walk in boot camp, you're walking through a line, and there's people shooting you with vaccines kind of like on the side, and you walk to the next one and they put vaccines, and next one and vaccines. So you're like
So how many total?
A lot. I mean,
Like
anthrax
20 or-
anthrax vaccines. I got at least 7
Whoa.
of just anthrax vaccines. You know. Yeah.
And
so-
it made you feel kind of sick too. Like,
Yeah,
a
and it's
little bit.
mandatory, and if you don't accept, you get in trouble. If you don't,
What's
if
the
you,
punishment? I'm just curious.
The punishment
I
is
wanna
you
know.
get to go see the captain and get yelled at, and you probably end up going to restriction, which means you can't leave the ship, and they cut half your pay. So they keep your pay. They kind of make you prisoner, like on the boat.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, that's how they do it, I guess.
Yeah. And so my last year in the military is when I started getting all these like projections back. I was having all these experiences, and it was in 2012, which is funny because it was the year of the Solaris portal,
Yeah.
which is my root DNA, you know.
Yeah.
And I was just experiencing all this like crazy acceleration. Like
Yeah,
you
it was
just,
the whole year.
Yeah.
The whole year.
The
The
entire
sun
year.
portal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I was just getting like slammed.
And
with,
that's actually what the Mayans meant by 2012.
Yeah.
People don't know. It was like the energy of the sun
Yeah.
coming through in 2012.
Yeah.
It wasn't like this whole crazy transformation that people
Yeah.
thought was going to happen. It was just like that transformational energy from the sun,
Yeah.
not from what they thought was
Yeah,
going to happen,
they
which
thought
I
it
don't
was-
even know what. Like, they
They
thought
just thought it was the end of the
ascension
world.
and,
Yeah.
or the end of the world.
Yeah, there was so
you know,
many things.
crazy things.
Yeah. So that's when like things really started accelerating, and then I was going at the same time. I was still going to Christian church, and it was just kind of like I remember talking to the pastor and telling him about these things I was seeing and experiencing, and he was just like, he had no real answer for me, no real thing. He just kind of like keep praying type stuff, and I
Pray
was just
until
like,
you get there.
yeah, and then I'm like, this doesn't make sense anymore. So then I moved back to California because I was in the East Coast, and shortly after that is when I got introduced to you by mutual friends.
Yeah.
Because I was just researching, you know, and having all these projections, and eventually.
Is that why you started researching? Because you wanted to figure out why you were having the astral
Yeah.
projection?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I wanted to learn how to control it. I wanted to know what was really happening, because I knew that there was way more out there than what they were telling us that there was, and or potential as you know, as human beings. So that's what led me to dig and ask people and talk to people, and that's how I met you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny, the first time that I met you in person, I invited you guys to a night hike
Yeah, we
in
went
the
on a night hike.
forest. So we were deep in the forest. It was completely pitch black.
Absolutely.
And that's when I started to see that you were like glowing like a sun. And
Yeah.
then we talked about DNA
Yeah.
and DNA imprints, and I told you that you were really receptive.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's just like it spurred this whole passion of,
Yeah.
you know, connecting. And because around that time, I was basically just kind of disenfranchised. Like, I just
Yeah.
kind of moved away from all the spiritual groups that I was with before, because I was kind of like with nothing but New Agers before you came along.
Wow.
So I kind of just distanced myself from everyone, because everyone believed in something really weird, like
Yeah.
worship this, worship that. It was like a repackaged religion.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, oh, on guard. I don't know if I want to teach anyone anything anymore.
Yeah.
I was kind of in a debate of whether or not I was even going to say anything.
Yeah.
And I was withdrawing again.
Yeah.
Also with my contact experiences, like I just stopped talking about it. So then, you know, when our mutual friend said,
Yeah.
hey, let's all meet up and have a night hike, I was
Yeah.
like, okay. You know, like you just feel comfortable to be in nature. In a
Yeah.
place where, you know, like people won't judge you, you
Exactly.
can speak freely. So we met in the perfect place, and from there on we were super motivated
Yeah.
as a group. We were meeting and going to nature a lot.
We're
doing,
going like once a week. Or
yeah,
something.
once a week we were doing that, and we were going on nature hikes and doing group meditations and affirmations, group affirmations we
Yeah.
were doing. And it was getting really powerful, definitely.
It was getting really strong, and I think that that's what made me just like leave religion really fast, because it wasn't too short before that I was still kind of like attached to that religion, because when I would project and I would encounter these malevolent beings, I didn't know how to protect myself.
Of course, yeah.
And instantaneously I would, you know, call on prayer or do whatever to try and push these beings away. But when I met you, when I was describing you my experiences, and you were describing your experiences and like the way you went about it, and it just made it was the first time ever that it just made perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
You know, because like you said, all that new age stuff that I was finding,
Yeah.
it just didn't make sense. It was like more worship or more confusion, and I was just starting to get in a really scared kind of like
and
mindset.
frustrated. You're struggling with yourself because you know that there's something, and there's some pieces of information in it that are right, but then the rest of it is just hurting you in a way. It just feels like it hurts you in the end. So it's like you take a little piece of that, but then the rest just is totally, decaying and degrading your experience. So you can't even fully appreciate or experience New Age, in my opinion, because there's so few things that are actually of substance. So then you have to guide that path yourself, which is what we started to do.
Yeah.
Because we said, just forget all this stuff. Because I think we were all at that point in our lives where we didn't know if we should follow the main path that we were given. The same kind of thing as religion, right? Here's the path for religion, just follow it because it's something you're used to. And then with the New Age, it was the same thing. It was just another step of that. Yeah. And it's the easy path.
It's the absolutely easiest path because, they just kind of give you guidelines, and this is kind of
you just walk straight forward,
Yeah.
and then you're getting there.
Yeah.
But when you do it yourself and you have it as a community and a lifestyle, like the way that we do, and we were forging our own path and digging into our own wisdom, then this is something that even now to this day is still, for me, and I think for all of us who experience this work, it's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's proven itself. That's the difference.
It proves itself every day just by you focusing on yourself and taking this information that we share, and it really just proves itself when you allow it to enter and take all the garbage from your mind. I don't know how to explain it. Is that the right way to explain it?
Yeah.
When you make room for your real thoughts, when you realize that every day everything affects how you think, and until you learn how to really discuss what's coming from you and what's being told to you of how life should be or what your way of thinking should be, then that's when it really proves itself, because you're creating it every second and it just keeps moving.
It's your reality, and people are told that it's always something else's reality, or it belongs to something else, or a different kind of brand, let's say, or a different kind of label.
Yeah.
And then when you move away from that and you experience it as a community, on a personal level, then it's so full of substance and it's so wholesome that even now it's every experience that we had as a group or just one-on-one or with our friends, it's this is something that will stay with us forever. Whereas when you go to religion, you just forget. When you go to church, there's nothing memorable that happens.
There's nothing memorable, and that you feel I don't know, at least I felt a little dumber because, and it's not at the moment I didn't realize that I felt a little dumber, but looking back at it, it's exactly how I felt, just because I stopped thinking on my own.
Yeah, you're just suppressed. Your creativity is suppressed. Your curiosity is the most thing that's suppressed, because if you're asking something beyond what say the Bible offers or whatever the religious scripture offers, then they're no, you don't have the right to see that because you're not higher than this hierarchy thing.
Yeah, or just leave it up to him, and he'll fix it for you, or just keep giving your energy away and he'll guide you.
Right.
And this and that, and people do that, and they kind of stop thinking no, if there's a problem in their life that doesn't feel right, instead of thinking how can I solve this, how can I create a better reality and heal myself, it's let me give my energy away to whatever this is, and I'm sure they're gonna fix it for me, whatever God or thing they're worshiping. No, they're gonna fix it for me, and you just keep doing that, and your life doesn't get any better.
And you don't take responsibility.
Exactly.
And also, if you receive something in your life, say you'll attribute it to that, but that had nothing to do with you. Yeah. So that's not something that is yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what people forget all the time, is if you continuously give your power away, there's no part of you anymore.
Yeah.
It's just that thing, and you are kind of experiencing it, but you're not experiencing yourself. And people don't value themselves anymore as an individual, is what I found. They're afraid to accept, that they're important, that they should be loved, that they should take care of themselves. And that goes back into the deprogramming, because everyone is programmed to believe that there's something so much lesser.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of work for us to get to the point where we are today, because I used to be at a point, if you see my first video, everyone really likes that video, but back then I was really traumatized, really depressed, very unfunctional. I was like really scared to even be around people, severe, trauma and everything, stress, like severe. And now it's like all these things have changed. I can talk about this now. I can sit with you and talk about this now. But back then, I just wanted to like hide in a room and just hope that I don't even wake up, the next day, because I was believing all that other stuff, that other things have to take care of it for me. And when it doesn't happen, you feel like you're not worthy anymore.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's damaging.
Even when I talk to my family about these things, there's a lot of fear. There's just so much fear, and it really leads back to religion, and the programming that religion brings to them. Just it doesn't, my parents have experienced my experiences firsthand.
Same with mine.
And actually, something interesting. Someone told my parents when I was a baby that I was a sun being, and that they needed to take me to the pyramid in Mexico to charge me up, with energy. And they did that, every once in a while. And then I had all these experiences. I would wake up in panics because I would get dreams and, projections of, sacrifices and weird things that I didn't know how to explain at the time.
Yeah.
And they would take me to church for cleansings and, all this, like,
that's
other
the wrong
stuff.
remedy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And, when I explain to them now, what I know now, they've experienced what we went through together, really. And they still choose to, stay in their, at least my mother,
in the comfort zone.
In the comfort zone, and I'm like, you're hurting yourself. It just doesn't register.
Yeah. Well, everything that we're doing and everything that we've been talking about, this is the future. And let's say 100 years from now, this will be the norm.
Yeah.
Because I think people are at a state where they are dissatisfied with what's being given in society, like what's being given as the solution or the answer, like what you're saying. Like if you have these experiences as a child and then they keep putting you in the same situation that's actually not helpful for you, then eventually as an adult you're going to seek for a different remedy. You're going to seek for more truth, like something that resonates with you, that's something that connects with you. And so when I started getting that information from like the DNA experience for my entire life and really starting to formulate it and starting to trust myself and to trust everything that was inside, then it started to become really clear that there's so much opportunity rather than everything that I was told that was the opposite. Like there's no opportunity, there's only this, there's only that. And then I became free, even though people don't believe or understand in my personal life, like back then, like my family and all my friends, like the social circle back then, just very toxic. And now, since I've moved away from that and I've modeled something else, they actually respect me, they look up to me, they look to me for guidance, things that I never thought were possible at all. And I have respect in my life now, and I have love, like real love in my life that I didn't have before. And all of my friends and everyone that I know are people that I really truly trust, not people that like I just see like just for
like coffee,
status or something.
Exactly.
It just isn't like that.
Yeah. And I think something that you said that was key was like trusting yourself,
Yeah.
and like really learning how to trust yourself. I understand it can take time for some people because different traumas and different things that we experience. I mean, we've all gone through different things, but I've noticed
everybody has some wounds for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the trust factor is huge. And what I've realized when I talk again with my family or other people, and they say, religion brings comfort to people, or it brings this and that. Like they understand that there's something weird with religion, but they kind of accept it because people find comfort in it. So they think like, oh, as long as they're finding comfort with this, then it's okay, whatever. but it's not okay because people gotta understand that they're becoming lazy. They're not taking charge of their lives. And that is religion because they're waiting for someone else to do things for them instead of them doing themselves. And when I say something to my parents, like and like about our government, just explaining corruption in our government and how all that comes full circle, there's no separation in any of that.
Yeah.
They understand that the system is corrupt. They'll go ahead and agree with me, like, yeah, I understand that the government's corrupt and things aren't just for people. But when it goes to religion, it's like they kind of like switch sides. They can't put it together, and the thing that they always say is like, well, what can I do? Like they feel very powerless. And it's like, no, like you have power. That's what angers me, that they feel powerless and and like they have nothing to contribute.
Because they don't believe in personal accountability anymore.
Yeah.
And that's why all these other things kind of happen. Because if you don't feel that you are accountable for what goes on in the world, what goes on with humanity, what goes on with the planet, especially what goes on with yourself, then nothing gets resolved. Everything is the same. It's just the same cycle repeated. And that's why great disclosure is so important, because this is a way for us to break away from all those things. And not just to break away, but to actually find the solutions for that.
Absolutely.
Because most of the time, people know about the problems now. They talk about it. You know, people are interested in it, and everyone packages it as conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
But it's really just conspiracy research with facts and proof backing it up.
Exactly.
Regardless if people agree or not, that's, if you look into it, you'll see that that's actually how it is. But then, where does that go? And I understand where people are frustrated with that, because, yeah, there's one thing to be said, the truth is uncomfortable, but I'm more comfortable with the truth now, because it pushes me to become a better person, even though it's hard to hear, even though it's a really ugly thing to face. I would prefer to see the world as it truly is, so I can handle it on the onset, and then come up with the solutions for that. Because right now, the state of the world is everyone knows the problems, but not a single person has a solution that they're offering. At least for the system of, you know, our society, of what's going on in the global news, and, you know, what's going on in politics. There's no solution. There's not really any problems like that are being resolved by actual people that aren't in those organizations. And that's what people forget, is like government only really works well when people participate with it, and they forget that. You know, and everything else, like, it comes down to even the food you eat, like where you live, in your community, everything. Like,
it comes down.
People make the world how it is.
It starts with community and really living life as an example, you know, and living by example starts with yourself, your family, your immediate circle, if you want to call it, and then, you know, it goes to your community. If you can make a change there and educate people. And then it starts getting bigger and teach other people how to build the same kind of communities and creating empowerment within, you know, with each other. So then we could, you know, tell the government kind of like.
Well, it's more like if you can offer a solution of something, then people respect you for that. Even if they don't agree, it's like, it's good to just think about these things and have it as an option, right? Because if you don't, then it's just like you're just complaining and complaining and complaining, and you're just spinning your wheels, and you're just stuck in the negativity, and then that makes them feel uncomfortable too, because most of the time people are trying to do the right thing, they just don't know that maybe something is wrong because they don't have the information. So most of the time I'm giving people the benefit of the doubt, because I believe that at the core level humanity actually wants to do right by each other, but a lot of times they just come off base because they've been manipulated into something that actually isn't good for them, that isn't good for others, but they believe that that's the right thing to do because they have been, you know, programmed to actually do that in the way that they're told to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that people definitely do want to do the right thing, and they are becoming more aware of what's going on. They just can't really. I think it comes to trust also. I think that as people become more aware, they're also not trusting as much. So when like presenting with something completely different information, it's almost like, whoa, it sounds too good.
It's a shock factor.
Yeah, it's kind of like, no, like, you know, it's like too good to be true, but it's like, no, like, you know, be okay with it being this good because life should be this good.
that's the problem. People are resistant because, you know, if you tell somebody how amazing they are, they're afraid of you because they're like, wait, how do you trust me more than I trust myself? Like, that's where people get all kind of like defensive when they should just embrace that, because in their soul and like the depth of their being, they want the validation. Everybody wants to be loved and liked and respected and admired, but then when they actually get it, because of all the programming, they're like, whoa, stop, hold up, like, Chela, stop telling me I'm an awesome person, like, you're a terrible person for calling me an awesome person. And it's just like the insanity of society, you know? Like, if I boost someone up, they're like, whoa, don't do that, no, like, I'm so scared now, you know, because there's all this responsibility now, and it's like, but this is your opportunity to shine, this is your opportunity to thrive, like, why are you afraid, you know, this, and then say a week later, they're going to be complaining, like, oh, I want a better life, I want this and that, and it's like, I was just telling you.
Yeah.
You know?
I just told you how.
And then it's like, wow, like, the people can't even hear anymore.
No, exactly. When people ask me of like, you know, how I left religion and all of a sudden or whatever, and I come out with this completely different ideal and mentality.
Yeah.
And I explain to them like, listen, like, you know, religion is bad for many reasons, but just think of this, like, you know, if it's a loving God, why are you not perfect, and why do you have to, you know, what did you do that was wrong by being born into this planet?
Yeah.
And why are you not perfect?
Right.
Why can only, you know, one being be perfect?
Why would a creator create you to be imperfect? Like,
exactly.
What kind of benefit would there be for creator to see you suffer?
Exactly.
They created you. Why would they want you to suffer?
Exactly.
Like, that's like a waste of energy. That's a waste of your intention. That's a waste of pretty much every reason why you exist.
Absolutely.
It just doesn't make any sense, you know.
No
and then
sense.
at the same time, they say that, you know, creator is like all loving, but how could he be all loving if he's wanting to punish you all the time?
Exactly.
That doesn't make any sense.
No sense.
There's no logic in that at all.
And when you tell them that they are perfect and they were, you know, they are loved, they're kind of like freak out and they're like, they just
Rejection.
That's exactly what I get.
Yeah, total rejection.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, I can't possibly be as good as you say.
Yeah.
But then every now and then you meet the people who are just like so ready, so hungry,
Yeah.
and they want to take their lives to the next level, and they literally just like catapult like
Yeah.
as far as possible, like to the next level. At least like even in their thinking,
Mhm.
they're able to have so much more energy and sustain like their passion for longer.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing to see that. Like, say, like, when somebody finds out what their DNA is and they, like, totally embrace that, then they just go full throttle with their life.
Absolutely.
And everything improves. Their attitude improves. Their self-identity improves, like, tremendously. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, people really suffer with that.
Yeah.
They do.
Definitely. I mean, in my experience, before I knew about the DNA and I got my 10 DNA chart from you,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I lived in a state of fear, really.
Yeah.
Because I had this constant thought in the back of my head of like being punished for living my life a certain way, you know, because of the religious stuff. And then I didn't know how to defend myself astrally and all that stuff. But when I got my DNA chart from you, and I understood what it meant and how that belonged to me, and
Yeah.
how I could use the information within my body to propel everything in my life. It was a complete game changer, you know, like instantly, like my astral projections, I was able to kick ass much more, and all those beings that were like coming to me to, you know, attack me, I was destroying them, I was blowing them out of the water just because I came to my power. I lived in a state of fear from music, you know, I love music and I make music now, but I didn't touch an instrument or try to make music until I was 23, and I always liked it, you know, and I learned to trust myself from, you know, learning my DNA, and after that I was just like, I can do this at any point in my life, and I just went ahead and started doing it. I lost all fear after knowing who I really am, you know, and I think that's not, no one can take that away from you.
No,
once you take
totally
it on.
invaluable. And not only that, like a lot of people who follow my channel, they're really interested in astral projection, but they constantly struggle with trying to experience that. And I think it's really hard when you don't have the right community, you don't have somebody who is like really like behind you, like pushing you, motivating you. Like we've had so many years of experience, so you're like at a really good level with astral projection. Like I would consider you a master of that. And I think a lot of times like people don't think it's possible. So I think it's good for them to see you and how you like worked to that point. Like it wasn't just given to you like, oh, here it is. Like you were of course experiencing that in your life here and there, but it's like you have to like use that skill. You have to practice.
Exactly.
Otherwise it doesn't come to you. It's not like everything is automatically given to us. We had to work for it, you know. And it's not something that like, you're gifted. Everyone is gifted, but you know when this goes through the life stages and the programming of the life stages, like it's taken away from you at childhood. So you have to get it all back. That's the problem.
Yeah, definitely. And something that like really motivated me with astral projections, that once I met you, and then I would have like an astral projection in that or something, and then I would message you the next day, and I was like, I think I saw you, or I had this, and then you would kind of like fill the other part, like, yeah, we were, you know, up to this and that, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so real.
Confirmation.
Like, yeah, like I'm not just,
It's
being
not just
a
in your
weirdo.
imagination, because
Yeah.
then you have somebody to check with.
Exactly.
And to see, like, because then it makes sense to you because you saw it,
Yeah.
but you might not have had the identification of what it was.
Exactly.
And then when you have somebody who's seen it more often, and then they say, oh, this is what it was, this is
Yeah.
what it looks like,
Absolutely.
but you saw it already, then you know it's for real.
Yeah.
And it's
exactly.
like mind-blowing experience when you
Yeah.
have that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my ex-boyfriend was the one that taught me the astral projection.
Oh, nice.
Because I was having terrible nightmares for years and years and years because of all the traumatic things that happened to me.
Yeah.
And then he started telling me to feel the weight of like a sword or a weapon in my hand before I went to sleep to protect myself. And so he would tell me like everything that happened in my dream, what I did wrong, what I did right. And so he was so clear in seeing astrally that he showed me how to show others how to do the same.
Exactly.
So, and he came into that because he was so into his imagination and trusting that. Like he would read like Robert Jordan, like Wheel of Time series and like fantasy books and playing video games and like doing everything he could to stimulate his creativity and in his like astral sight, like through just like looking at all the possibilities.
Yeah.
And so he was like my mentor in high school.
That's really cool.
And then it just from then on I really started practicing, and he kept telling me every night you go to sleep, that's your practice. Every single night that's your battleground.
Yeah.
If something comes to you, you're responsible for yourself. He wasn't even gonna come in to defend me, He's like, you gotta do it yourself, like
that's awesome.
like throw yourself in the water,
That's awesome. I think a key word that you said there is like imagination.
Yeah.
Imagination is huge. I remember when I was little, I thought I had it. Most kids have a really big imagination, and I knew I had quite a large imagination when I was little. And my parents used to say that I used to talk in my room because I'm an only child, so I didn't have any siblings. So I guess I used to talk.
Who are you talking to?
Yeah, they said I used to talk to people, and I would say, oh yeah, I was talking to this young guy. Like I would just tell him I was talking to like whoever, and like I knew them by name and thing, And there has to be a period where I lost memory of that, or either that or I started suppressing it out of fear.
Yeah.
Just because I felt strange, I felt like, why am I talking to people or things like that. I even remember I was playing outside with this kid this one time, and I was picking rocks up, and I was looking for what I understand. I was looking for crystals. And I was telling this kid, I was telling him like, no, I was like, there's crystals that can heal people and that could heal all kinds of things. And I was telling this kid, he's like, how do you know this? I'm like, I don't even know. I was even questioning at the same time, like, I don't know how I know this.
It's instinctual, but I can't like explain it in detail.
And I even told him like, I think in another lifetime I used to, work with these things, and at a very young age I had all this, ideas about other lifetimes, and I would sit there and I would think about, death, and I would be like, no, like it would not compute to me that you died and that was it, or
that's
this,
the end.
Yeah, like it just didn't make sense.
End of experience.
It wouldn't make sense to me, and I would get scared, because I was a kid.
Yeah, and in religion they stress that so hard on you. Like, if you mess up in this life, like this is your only life, it's your one shot,
you don't
one
die.
shot deal,
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so that was, I remember having those experiences when I was a kid, having flashbacks of past lives, or just knowing about crystals, even though I didn't really know it. But I was kind of looking for them with just rocks.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And you're drawn to it.
Yeah, and I was like, it's in my imagination, but it's not. It's it is her imagination, but it's also us tapping into that part of existence and what is out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had some great role models when I was in elementary
Yeah.
school. There was this girl, Jessie, and she would always carry crystals around, and everyone would ask her like why she was handing the crystals to them, and she said, just trust.
Yeah.
And that's all she said.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, like, and to this day I just think about her, like she was such a powerful person at that age, that she just trusted, like from the beginning, like maybe she just already like knew and knew to believe like in what her experience was and her connection to that. But that was like my first introduction to crystals.
Wow.
So it kind of helped me to feel safe with that, like in the future. I didn't go into it like when I was a kid, but later on in life she kind of like made it possible for me. So every now and then we come into contact with people who really like motivate us and push us, but I think a lot of times people, they miss the mark.
Yeah.
Like they're brought in, they're like invited, but then they reject it because they don't feel like worthy of it.
Exactly.
And I've noticed that, you know, like where people will say, oh, this person came to me, but since I don't know them, like I don't know if I should trust, you know, their experience or what they say. And I'm like, I understand that, but you also have to like evaluate the whole thing. You know, you have to see the whole thing instead of just rejecting from the beginning. Right?
Yeah, and that goes again back to learning how to trust yourself and your intuition and
your
thinking,
feeling.
Yeah, and really thinking on your own and feeling everything, because you know we know what's true and what's not true, and you can feel it in your gut. It's kind of like that gut feeling, but there's a difference that some people don't understand. That's like when you fear something, you sometimes you feel that too, and then when your intuition tells you something is right, you feel it in here too. So you have to learn how to distinguish from programming and fear that's trying to pull you back from the truth and from understanding no, this is true, you know, this is not just fear.
It's a tough battle between extremes for sure, because your mind also tells you, like from all the years of programming and like mind patterning, like okay, if you encounter somebody that does these things, then it's outside of like what society says is okay, and you have to reject it. And then when you reject that, maybe that's something that was actually good for you. You know, like you never know. Like it's just like a constant process of evaluation. And again, it goes back to the community. Like when you have the community, you're able to like bounce the ideas off of one another. Like, is this actually okay? Like if you go to a crystal shop and then there's some weird vibes in there, you're able to talk about it with those people.
Absolutely.
You know?
And I've experienced that a lot. You know, crystal shops, or like I've gone and asked, like, do you have crystal skulls, you know? And they look at me like, crystal skulls? Like, no, we don't sell that stuff here. Like, they're thinking crystal skulls are some kind of bad thing, you know? And I'm like
black magic or voodoo.
Yeah, I thought you guys were some kind of like, you know, healing or conscious shop, and now you're discriminating against something. It's like, oh, we're open-minded, but we're not. You know?
Right. But if you were to go to Mexico and talk about crystal skulls, they're like, yeah, we totally understand. Like, here's some experience with that. Like, you can also see the historical parts of that. Like, it just depends also on the culture that you're dealing with too. Because I found I've talked about that before in some of my other videos, that every single person who I've met from Mexico, when I talk to them about ET, like UFO contacts, every single one so far that I've met has had an experience. Yeah. And it's just a completely different kind of culture from here. Because people have it here, but they don't believe it. Like when they see it. It's like a disassociation from reality.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, I lived in Mexico for 10 years. I was born in California, and then I lived in Mexico City until I was 10. And I had, you know, contact when I was in Mexico. I've seen UFOs, bebas, you know, just floating above a building with my mom. Again, same thing, you know. Like, we used to live in the building and go up this. I used to live at the top. And, you know, going up the stairs, every level, there's a little balcony. So I would run upstairs, be my mom, and I would hang by the balcony, and I was just staring, and there it is, right, like 2 buildings next to us, just floating there, and I'm, like, looking at it, and my mom's looking at it, you know, and, like, it was awesome. And then when I talk to her about nowadays, you know, like how I talk about ETs, and how, you know, they're just our family, and, you know, the same thing, it doesn't compute again. She goes back to her six.
Yeah, back to the programming.
But I just think it's funny that I've seen plenty of stuff in Mexico and contact experiences growing up, and then coming here, and it's different.
There's more rigidity here, I would say, with the experience, because you have to clarify it, and you have to like basically like prove it in a sense, and that really takes away from the whole entire experience of being a human being, I would say. Because once it's like everyone doesn't trust one another as a human being, like no longer is that a valid source of proof or information. A human being is no longer a valid source of proof or information. So that really hurts us as an entire culture, because we can't learn from each other anymore. We can only learn from a book or learn from you know, some kind of research or science.
It has to be verified.
But people don't realize is that all of these things basically are paid for and funded by the things that want to suppress you from learning more. Exactly. And they don't even think about that. You know, like that there's money to be made by people not like sharing the truth. Yeah. And they don't even think about that possibility.
No.
You know?
They don't even think about that.
So it's like, okay, the human experience is no longer valid. Yeah. So if you believe the same thing, like the scientific thing that is actually like a non-scientific thing, let's say, It's just a corporate thing, actually.
It is a corporate thing.
Like it's whatever the corporate agenda is.
Yeah.
It's not the real authentic experience, right? So
Yeah.
your experience there was a real experience for you. You saw it with your own eyes. You were the witnesser of that. You were the experiencer. And I've met a lot of other experiencers, but none of them are willing to talk about it because they know that they're going to be like judged and ridiculed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's just a really sad thing because they have wonderful stories to share, and they just don't feel comfortable to do that. So that's why I'm hoping, like with my channel, like I'm going to encourage more people to step forward and share. And they do share with me, but I would love to see them like sharing with the world.
With the world, they should. And everyone, if you've had contact or seen anything, don't be scared to be made fun of. I remember very clearly one time, my dad, he had a site, he saw a UFO here in California. He was working, he works for the school district, so he was in the campus at night, and he saw a UFO by the school, pretty low, and I remember he freaked out. He called my mom, and he was like, I just saw a UFO, he was like freaking out and all this stuff, and like my mom was like, oh really, I was hyped up about it because I always wanted to see more, since I saw my first one I was little, I wanted to always see them. I was like, where are they,
Yeah.
And,
let me go outside and see if I can see it.
But when my dad told our family friends, I remember the first thing, like the family friends, they made a joke like, what were you smoking? Or like, stop smoking that stuff, and like, they're like, really? And then, it just never gets really taken seriously. It gets brought up every once in a while with the family friends and stuff, but it was never like he saw it for real. It's kind of like,
it's not
almost like a joke. Yeah, exactly. And then nowadays when I bring that up with my dad, and he kind of starts doubting it, like, oh, I don't know, maybe it was like a static balloon or like something else, And I'm like, no, I think you saw what you saw, You need to trust yourself whether people believe you or not.
Yeah. Even my father, he was chased by a UFO when he was younger, and he shared that experience with everyone in the family, and everyone basically like turned on him.
Wow.
But he still was telling the story like to his kids because he felt like it was important for us to know what his life was like and what he had gone through, and he wanted us to have the whole picture of what happened to him, regardless of what others said in the family. He was making it clear, like, okay, I want you guys to know what my life experience was. And it wasn't just that, it was just everything else, right? But when you talk about your whole life story and you have one moment and then that one moment is ridiculed and judged, it's really difficult because then you have to shut down, you're not able to talk freely anymore, and then that causes a lot of pain and suffering and wounding, and people don't understand that that's a very damaging thing.
Very damaging.
That will last maybe for your entire life.
Absolutely.
Unless, you resolve it on your own, but then it's like they're putting all this pressure and pain on you when they claim that they love you. And that's what I basically addressed to my family. Like, if you keep doing this, you're putting pain on me. And if you love me, you wouldn't do that. Like you would just consider the possibility. I'm not telling you to believe. I'm just saying consider that I'm being credible, that I'm being trustworthy. That's all I'm asking. You can believe what you want to believe, but treat me with respect. That's it.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that again with my family. I think a lot of my family has experiences of spiritual kinds, or you want to call it astral projection experiences. But I would say even my uncles and my grandparents from my mom's side of the family, they've had contact with bebas and stuff, with UFOs. They've seen when they were younger in Mexico again. Because there's so much contact there. There was a UFO that came down behind their building to an elementary school campus. And this is like a well-known story in Mexico, where there's a documentary where they interviewed the cops I saw that came down. There was a bunch of witnesses, and my uncles were, probably in their teens, and they saw it. It was right behind their house, and they were there, and they saw this thing now. And they weren't always the most religious until I would say the last 10 years. They turned to Christianity pretty hard, and now they're completely stuck to them. When I bring those experiences they had, like, well, how can you believe this when you experienced things like this when you were younger, and you've had astral projections and you've experienced a lot of this spirituality stuff, and you just shut it down now that you're into religion. Like, absolutely, they shut it down, and they're like, I don't even know what I experienced, that's what they said. They completely, like, it's like,
then they
distrust
just
themselves.
it.
Exactly. And they're like, it doesn't they don't explain that in the Bible, or there's nothing about that stuff, and it's just like
it's so linear and confined and restricted, like their experience, that when they experience something outside, it could be anything. Then people just shut down, and they again damage themselves and are thereby damaged by other people. And so it's just like a vicious cycle. And then if you don't receive like energy healing, emotional healing, therapy, then it's like it's attacking your mind, it's attacking your body, like you become unhealthy. When I was suppressing my entire experience of my contact experience with reptilians and zetas and every crazy thing that happened to me, basically I started to become really sick because I had to shut down like inside, that I felt like I was dying inside, and I was. And you can see it visibly, like if you were to see a picture of me like then to now, it's like completely different. But once I just broke through that and I was honest with myself, it was almost like I unlocked this door, then I became free and really powerful and very, very brave for the first time. Like, you know what, there's nothing to fear because I've already been through the worst. I've already been hurt by everyone. Everyone is already going to mistreat me anyways. So why don't I just step up and give myself the power back that they try to take away from me. And that's all it takes. You just have to say, you have to realize people have already hurt you, and then you just push forward. And then you're able to disclose everything for what it is.
Definitely. I agree with how sick it really makes individuals when they suppress that. Seriously, my grandma, she's a rainbow being, and she used to do really good tarot readings, like really good. She was really, really good. My uncles used to go to her and get her tarot readings, and she used to do healings, and she used to make money that way. And then once my uncles turned religious, they actually went as far as like making my grandma stop doing that for herself. So she stopped doing healings, she stopped doing tarot readings, and they made her so fearful that she had to promise, her religious belief that she wasn't going to do that anymore. And now she won't do it at all, and she is so sick. She's so depressed. It's just so sad to see, and like they're creating that, and they just don't see it at all, because it just blows my mind. They went from going to her services, reading, getting tarot and cleansing from her, and now they told her to stop, and now she's like depressed, and like she doesn't go out.
It's a double standard. It really is. Like a lot of times, like people know what I do. They know that I can read DNA. They know that I can, help them in all these ways with like their spirituality. And my whole family knows that too. So they'll give me a little bit of credibility. They'll ask for my advice. But then they'll turn on me in the same vein and say, like, but you shouldn't do that. And I'm like, but you just came to me, like, asking for my help, with exactly what you know I can do. And so I just constantly remind people, listen, like, you either believe it, you believe in me, or you don't. Like, you can't just have, like, this double standard, because it's unfair. It's unfair to you, it's unfair to me, it's unfair to everybody. And that's the same thing there. Like, they know the value of what she was offering, but they don't want to accept it because it doesn't fit their worldview, which is very narrow and very, restrictive. And if you just say, I don't care about that, I don't care about those labels, whatever it is, whatever the truth is, let it be. And then once you just do that, you let it go, then everything becomes possible for you. Everything.
And I think that the main takeaway from all this, that we're talking about is trust yourself,
Number one.
Just trust yourself, We have all these experiences, and you may have yours, but it comes back to trusting yourself, know what's truth, and follow that, and you should be just
and
fine.
Respect yourself, and know that you are worthy of being healed, protected, loved, and fully whole. And whatever that means for you, you have to follow it, because you're the only one that can do it for yourself.
No one else. No, you can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped. And
you can't help others unless you help yourself.
Exactly. If you really want to help others, and you become the best version of you, the best that you can be, then you could truly help everyone that you love and care about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I hope that you guys have enjoyed our conversation so far. We're looking forward to making more videos for you guys. And I hope that you guys got to know us a little bit more in our experiences, and we're looking forward to sharing more with you guys. Hope you guys are having a great day. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.